Okay, I can just see some more participants joining us. So firstly, a warm welcome. Welcome to our In Conversation with event. For those of you that don't know, this is part of our series that's designed to bring together alumni, students, parents, and other members of the GDST community to share the journey and achievements of a range of our alumni. So we're delighted this afternoon to have Jasmine Birtles with us. Jasmine is a Brighton Hove High School alumna, and she's also a finalist in the 2023 Alumna of the Year competition. So before we get started and before we hear from Jasmine, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. So firstly, Jasmine's built a stellar career in the traditionally male-dominated world of finance. She's a money expert, she's a speaker and a writer. With an array of achievements, Jasmine is best known as a TV and radio money expert whose mission is to break down the mystique around finance and, as she puts it, put the funny into money. I believe you're also a stand-up comedian as well, Jasmine, or have been. So she's an expert in all aspects of money and the economy, from how to get out of debt to stock market movements. She's also the founder of a brilliant website called moneymagpie.com. That's her own advice website, and she regularly appears on a range of TV and radio programs. As a writer, she is the Miss Money Saver columnist for the Daily Mail, and she has a monthly column in Platinum magazine as well. She also contributes to a host of other publications, including The Independent on Sunday, Closer, and Reader's Digest. She's published 38 books, including 5 on money and investing. And finally, Jasmine is also a patron of the debt charity Community Money Advice, and is ambassador for National Empathy Week. So lots of things to talk about this afternoon, Jasmine. So thank you again for being part of this series. So we're going to start by going right back to the beginning of your story. And can you tell us a little bit about your school days here at Brighton Girls, which was Brighton and Hove High at the time? And tell us a bit about what role, if any, did the school have in shaping who you are today?
Gosh, there's so much to say, isn't it? Because I loved school. I really loved being here. I came when I was 11. I'd spent my baby years, if you like, in a county primary in Seaford, where I lived. Seaford, as you know, is in between Brighton and Eastbourne. And Brighton, I mean, just going to Brighton was so exciting because Seaford is not the most exciting place. You know, they have a sign as you go in going, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter." That was my feeling, at least. So you get on the train, there were the boys from the Priory, the boys from the Cardinal Newman School, and that was great fun. You know, we'd all have fun with them, and then get to school. And school, you know, there was something. I'm trying to think of the word really, but it's not that it was comforting, but it was stable. There was a stability to school, together with loads of things to do. And as you probably gathered, I'm the sort of person that needs to be doing things. You know, I'm always like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. And school gave me a whole range of things, you know, from drama and singing to sport to all the academic stuff. And I had great difficulty deciding which GCSEs to do and which A levels to do, because I was like, oh, that's interesting. And like, oh, I'd like to do that, you know, always.
The best kind of student.
Yeah, yes. I was the sort of person who'd be at the staff room at lunchtime, you know, trying to get the physics teacher going, can you explain this? Because I just don't understand. Yeah, there was a lot. My parents got divorced when I was 16, and the years up to that were you know, particularly the last couple of years were quite tough. And so coming to school, I think that's what I mean really about this sort of stability stroke sort of comfort element. Coming to school was a relief at times. It was, and I could sort of forget about what was going on at home and just, you know, live that life with some really, really nice girls.
Fantastic. Well, I'm delighted to hear all of that, and our students will be, and I think they feel the same today. I hope they do. Can you tell us whether you had any role models growing up? I mean, maybe there was a teacher or someone that you kind of looked up to.
Good question. I mean, to be honest, there was my mum, who was a teacher actually, and my mum used to say to me, "Be kind to the teachers; it's a rotten job." So I was doing my best to be kind to the teachers. So there was, yeah, obviously my mum, and there was some. You know, well, our the headmistresses were good, particularly Bridget Wells, Mrs. Wells, as we talk. I was very impressed by her ability to just speak extemporaneously. It was amazing. She would, you could tell. Well, I felt I could tell that she was doing assemblies, and she just picked a subject, and you came away thinking, gosh, that was good. Yeah, that was a very good point. Yeah, I like that. We had, I wouldn't say she was a role model, but I do very much remember an English teacher, Mrs. Nuttall, who was kind of a figure of fun in some ways. She didn't mind. She was pretty cool. But she was the one who taught me, whether she realized it or not, to question what I was reading. And this is such an important thing. And in fact, my mum always used to say, make sure you question things. And she really, we would be reading Coleridge, for example, and we'd finish and she'd go, well, that was rubbish, wasn't it? Right. Somebody said that the written word by a great poet is rubbish, and then you'd read it again and go, oh yeah, actually no, that was a bit rubbish, to be honest. Yeah. And so that, together with there was a book I got in the library all about how to read Shakespeare, which was extraordinarily helpful on practical criticism, actually. So those two, I think, really helped me get into Cambridge, because they helped my critical thinking and my critical abilities. So I'm particularly keen on that. Our history teacher was Mrs. Hancock, was a really interesting one as well. She was quite spiky, and I remember her. You know how things sort of stick in your memory, particular episodes. And I remember the first time we had a lesson with her saying, "So, what's it like to be the creme de la creme?" And we were like, "What?" So, if you want, you're the creme. You're the creme. They said, "Ooh, thanks." So yeah, there was some really really genuinely good, dedicated teachers. I was impressed by a lot of them.
Some characters, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So this links to what you've just said. I'm really interested in this to find out, because you studied English at Cambridge, and you wouldn't normally associate an English degree, which is what I did actually, with somebody who works in finance. So tell us a bit about how did that part of your journey kind of work, going from an English graduate into the world of finance?
Yeah, no, good point. And actually, when I was at Cambridge, I spent at least the first 2 years trying to move to something else, because I kept thinking, it's not useful, it's English, I'm reading novels. What, I mean, come on, how's this helping the world? It's not feeding the hungry, is it? And my lovely tutor, Dr. Mary Redmond, who was a law tutor, she was very patient when I'd go to her, go, right, I want to change to law, and she'd go, okay, I'll put you in touch with the law people. And then it was like, no, I want to change to Arabic. So I'll get you. And then I thought, no, I'll go on, I'll stick with English. I liked it, it was fine. And frankly, my main interest in being part at Cambridge was to do all the extracurricular stuff, like footlights, light entertainment, rowing, all that kind of stuff. That was my main reason for being there. So it was, I came away with a degree, which again is, the main thing you go for. And in my last year at Cambridge, a friend of mine in another college said, did I want to take part in a Radio 1, BBC Radio 1 competition for students to do a radio program, to make one. I was like, yeah, I'm always up for whatever, or anything fun. I'm there. And we won our section. There were sort of 3, and we did a feature program, and we won it, which frankly was a bit of a surprise to both of us. And from that moment, I thought, I was asked by one of the judges, who was from Women's House, said, do you want to carry on with this? I went, yep, that, because I've never honestly been sure what I wanted to do with my life. I'm still looking for ideas, in fact. So, if you got any. And so at that point, I was like, yeah, I'll do, this is what I want to do. Yes, and so from that point, I got some help with how to create radio programs, and I had 1 or 2 contacts in publishing, in sort of magazines, newspapers, and I managed to get a few articles for them. And I had a friend who ran a journalism course, and he said, why don't you just do a bit of everything? So I went, oh, all right then, not realizing that meant I would be poor for 2 solid years trying desperately to get work, So I started off, I would say, as a sort of general features journalist, doing all sorts. And I did that for a bit. And kind of the way I run my life is, or what I laughingly call my career is, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how you get to do that. Go and ask a few people. Oh, that's how you do it. Right, I'll go and do it. So at that point, I was thinking I'd like to do some more comedy, actually, because I'd done some work with footlights and everything. I knew some people who were comedians. So I started doing that and doing the journalism at the same time to make the money, because you don't make any money at the start with comedy. And then I thought, oh, this isn't making much money. Right, I need to do some books. So I thought, how do I do books? And I found somebody who was an agent and sent him ideas, and that sort of started to work. And this was fine. At one point I thought I'm an actress. I said, I'm an actress. That's what I wanted. So I got myself an acting agent and did a touring production of a Drop Your Trousers comedy, which was great, except I lost money doing that. So suddenly, no, I'm not an actress, not going to be that. And it was at that point when I found that I was horribly in debt, about 10 grand's worth of debt. This was about 1999 to 2000. I suddenly thought, gosh, I've really got to work. I've got to get as much work as I can. And I was called by the BBC Business Unit, and they said, would you like to do some shifts here? And I went, well, yeah, I suppose. Do you pay? Because then, BBC. And they went, oh, yeah, we'll pay. And I said, oh, yeah, all right, because I needed the work, So they set me up for 3 shifts. And I went there. And I remember the day I went, I thought, oh, what am I doing this for? Because they said, have you got any business background? I went, no. And they said, fine, because that's the BBC, it doesn't matter. You don't need to actually know anything to work there. They'll hate me for that. But that is literally, that really was what it is.
Keep asking questions.
Yeah, it's okay. So I went there and I loved it. The first day I was there, oh, this is interesting, because I'd been looking for a subject, something to really put myself forward in. And I'd done quite a bit of consumer journalism, and this was just like a step forward from consumer. It was financial, personal finance, business, investing. And they put me particularly in the financial side and the personal finance side. And I just sort of kept working. And then I started writing I did stuff for newspapers and got into some TV stuff. Still, all of this is freelance. And I just decided, there was one point actually when I was doing some work. I remember I was in the office in the BBC Business Unit. And I don't know what I was looking up, but I was doing some research for a piece. And I suddenly got this light bulb moment, because I thought, this money stuff, it's not hard. It's just, common sense, mostly, not entirely, but mostly. And I thought, how come I'm in debt? I mean, I've had a good education. Genuinely, having an education, GDST school, it's a good education. Then I went to Cambridge. How come I'm in debt? And I thought, well, nobody taught me anything about money. So here I am. And then I thought, well, if I don't know it, and I've had a decent education, what are other people doing? So I thought, right, I'm going to make it my thing. I'm going to make it my aim to explain money in a way that somebody like me could understand, who has an English degree and is like, oh, boring, insurance. So that's basically what I decided to do from then on, and that's what I have tried to do since.
That's amazing. What a great story. And actually, as you said, there's so many different strands that have gone into your career. If you've got the kind of comedy, you've got the communication, you've got the English, you've got the kind of finance. So is there a part of your job that you love the most, or do you just love the fact that it's so varied?
Yes, that's exactly it. That's what I was going to say. It's so varied. I've never had an actual job, nasty things jobs, people telling you what to do. And there have been times, because being freelance is not easy. There are times when it suddenly goes like that, and you think, oh, golly, wouldn't it be nice to have an actual job where I just get paid, But I usually manage to find something else and create work, and just go and think, okay, who do I know? What do I know? Where should I come up with some ideas? And it is the variety, because there really isn't such a thing as a typical day. Because it could be, I mean, like this week, for example, I've got this podcast, I've got a couple of other podcasts to do. I know I've got some filming to do on Wednesday. I've got a couple of lunches. I've got an article to do for a magazine, and I've got some selling to do for Money Magpie. And then I just get called, I mean, like last week, we had the inflation figures and we had the interest rate figures. And I just get called by TV and radio saying, "Oh, could you come and talk about mortgages?" And go, "Yeah, sure. What would you like?" So you never know what's going to happen, and that's the interesting part of it.
Never a dull moment.
Yeah.
That's the key. So thinking back over all of your many successes over your career so far, can you tell us a bit about a time that has been challenging, and what was challenging about it, and how did you overcome it?
Yes, well, there've been lots, frankly, in all sorts of ways. But certainly, it's really when there's an economic downturn, and suddenly the budgets are pulled. And there've been a few of those where it's all going fine, and then suddenly, pull, it's like it pulls the rug out from under you. But what I've always found is sitting and having a good old think, just getting a bit calm and thinking about, okay, what is that? What have I got in the house? What have I got in my my ideas bank? What have I got that who do I know that I've worked for before that I could send ideas to? So that's a particularly helpful thing to do. And this year is a good example. At the beginning of the lockdowns, I thought, oh, we're going to have to think of some new things here. As it happens, it didn't affect it at all. In fact, in some ways, I got more work there. And Money Magpie, I was surprised to find, got more advertising. We thought we'd get less, but it was more. But what I have learned, and I would recommend this to anybody who's freelance, in fact, to be honest, anybody, but particularly if you're freelance, is that in the good times, you really do need to put money aside, and more than you would expect, because it's always the case that when the work has dried up for a bit, suddenly you get a whole load of other expenses. The boiler goes, the car goes, you suddenly got something, the service charges whacked up, whatever it is. So it's been a hard road to learn that lesson, but it's a good lesson. And so now I put money into savings, so for the downtimes, yeah.
So good. And yeah, on that note, actually, just thinking about, obviously we've got lots of students listening to this as well. And we've got students upstairs in our sixth form space who are listening. So do you have any advice for students of sixth form age who are sort of thinking about university, or maybe going gap years, or thinking about their careers? What would be your top tips for them?
Yeah, there are a few. I mean, firstly, to be honest, if they're going to university, make sure that you're going to a good one, and make sure that you're doing a really relevant course. Because I'm now in the position of being an employer at times. And there are CVs that go into the bin, because I think, what, really, you did that there? I mean, come on, you wasted the last 3 years. It's a sad thing to say, because I was so thrilled to go to university. I was the first person in my family to go to university. It was the big aim of my life. Now, though, honestly, if I were a student, I would be thinking twice, 3 times about it, because it's so expensive. You really need to know that it's going to be worth it, and that you can't get something like a paid apprenticeship instead. I've got a friend who did a really good apprenticeship with, I think it was with Visa or MasterCard, one of those. He ended up with no debts. He's got a good job, in the city. There are options.
Yeah, it's a very attractive option.
Yes, I would definitely think about that. But if you are going to university, I would certainly think about ways to make extra cash on the side. This is something, I'm going to blow my own trumpet here, but it's something that we specialize in Money Magpie. There's loads of ways, I know, because I've done a lot of them, lots of ways to make cash on the side, quite fun ones, like dog walking, being an influencer. I'm sure many can do that. There are lots of ways of doing it. So keep your eye out. I remember when I was at university, actually, and this was before, it was the thing to make money. I had I had a few ways of making money. That did psychological testing in the psychology department, got £10 a time. Woo! I used to make ball gowns because I had a sewing machine, and I made ball gowns for the balls. And I had a hair cutting business. No experience, just a big pair of scissors and a bad attitude. So I did that as all sorts. So there's always ways to make money. Really is. There are always ways to make money on the side.
Fantastic. Yeah, I did enjoy that aspect of your website, and sort of making money, how to make money doing nothing, how to make money, how to make your money work for you. It's all great. So let's talk a bit more about your memories of Brighton Girls. So do you have any kind of fond memories? If I was to ask you what's your fondest memory of being here, what kind of pops out?
Oh, yes. Gosh, yes. Honestly, there are so many. Primarily it's the other girls, it would be, of course, it's your friends, and I still keep up with some of them as well. There's one that I speak to quite regularly, another one where she and her husband come round to dinner, every now and then. So there are a few that I keep in touch with, more so really than my university friends, which is interesting. So definitely the girls. Really, there was a lot of kindness and a lot of fun and creativity. I'm, as you can tell, a bit of a show off. So I remembered a lot the drama that we did and the singing, so the music and the drama, but also just genuinely interesting lessons, learning things. I particularly enjoyed that. So yeah, it would be primarily the social, but also the learning.
The whole experience. So we've got a question here, which is a classic sort of interview question. So if you had a fancy dinner party and you could invite 3 guests, who would they be and why?
Oh, these questions are so difficult because I'm thinking I'd like the whole world. I mean, there's these. Well, I think, I was just saying to somebody at the weekend that I haven't seen enough comedy recently, not enough stuff that made me really laugh. So I think yes, I mean, there are lots of different dinner parties, but I'll pick one, which would be the comedians, and it would be 20th century comedians that are not with us anymore. I would definitely have Joyce Grenfell. I'm a big fan of hers. She was a quite wonderful woman, hilariously funny, good businesswoman. Didn't mess, you had to pay her fee, and also a churchgoer like me. So I'd have her. I would also have Victor Borger. Now, I don't know if you know Victor Borger. He was a wonderfully funny. I don't know where he was from. I think he was Eastern European, but he was a pianist, and he did some really funny stuff with on the piano, and all sorts. But I would have him because I've got a new piano, so I would have him playing the piano as well. And I think and again, another really good raconteur. Oh yes, raconteur, and just funny person would be Victoria Wood, who's sadly not with us anymore. I think that was
on my list as well. Yeah.
She was hilarious. I loved her stuff, and nice person as well. Apparently, I never met her, but I hear she's a nice person.
She could also do a turn on the piano. So
yes,
on his
exactly.
bit,
we'd all be sitting around the piano. Yeah.
Excellent. So just thinking about going back to what we were discussing earlier about financial advice. So the GDST commissioned a report last year where they surveyed lots of girls across the country, so in GDST schools and non-GDST schools, but there was an overwhelming appetite amongst young people for more sort of money education in terms of finance. So what do you think needs to change, and also why do you think that's been kind of missing in education so far? It seems so obvious that the one thing we all need. So any thoughts on that?
I know, I've been saying this for 20 years, I've been saying we need more education. Everybody is. This is the crazy thing. If you talk to anybody in financial services, anytime I'm interviewed, well, quite often when I'm interviewed on TV, somebody says, but we need financial education in schools. I'm like, yes, don't we? And there seem to be a few, well, there are a few things to say about it, of course. Firstly, yes, we need it. And in fact, it's in my list of things to do to to create a good education package for, really from the year dot, from start of school, 5, 6 onwards. But I'm told that the part of the problem, and you would know better than me with this, but that because it's not something that you do exams on, it's hard to have something to aim at. So, I mean, honestly, I wonder if we should bring in GCSE, more of a sort of home economics, or not quite that, but
personal finances, managing,
something like that. Yes, managing your money, managing your life. I mean, I one of my books is called, the money book, Control Your Money, Control Your Life, because it kind of is, if you're on top of your money, you're at least sort of halfway to becoming on top of much of your life.
Absolutely. So, there's a huge link between money and well-being.
Yes, there really is. Yes. So I think it's, I think the teachers need teaching. I mean, like you, my mum was a teacher, and I know your parents are teachers, and teachers have not been taught about money. They're some of the worst people really to ask about money. So we could do with teaching the teachers, so that they can impart it in the way that they know how to young people. But it's desperately important, and it's not, as I say, it's honestly, trust me, I'm a journalist, it's not that hard. It really is basic common sense, apart from taxes and benefits, which are not common sense, but everything else is basically common sense.
But it's an interesting comment you made there about, one of the reasons it's not there is that there's no sort of exam at the end of it. It's kind of quite a sad reflection on the education system, that we make all of this time for things that are going to be examined, but the things that are going to lead to us being content later in life, we maybe ignore them. So there's a lot to think about there, actually. But yes, and we should talk further on that, definitely.
Yes.
And I know that my mum has just bought Deborah Meaden's book for my son, who's 9, because
great
book, haven't she, for younger people, in terms of starting to think about money and investing. So lots of appetite for it. So on that note then, before we wrap up, is there a message that you'd like to leave with the students who are listening from our school today, who might be considering a career in, well, any of your kind of careers, in journalism, in comedy, in financial advice? Have you got any advice for them thinking about choosing their futures, I guess?
Yes, there are a few things. I mean, my first thing about journalism is don't. It's not well paid. Don't. But you can, there are always ways of making money in, anything where there's a need. I think what I've ended up doing is being very flexible, and going forward, I think flexibility and a willingness to change from one discipline to another is going to be very, very helpful, particularly with AI, which seems to be pulling the rug from under us in an awful lot of professions now. I mean, everything from musicians to accountancy. So I think, going forward, it's going to be the practical jobs, the practical things. I mean, literally being a plumber, being a hairdresser, those is going to be harder for AI to steal from us. But also, have a creative approach to things, because, as you say, I do a lot of different things, and you wouldn't think that comedy and journalism and personal finance or whatever would match together, but they sort of help each other. And so much of what we do now and going forward is about communicating things. So, if you are a communicator, then you could end up being able to communicate engineering and communicate economics, all these sort of things. So think flexibly, be flexible, be nimble. Don't just sort of go like, one direction, and be aware that there's all sorts of changes coming, and we just have to be quick to deal with them.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. As an English graduate, also, the art of storytelling, and in fact, the only time I've really enjoyed a presentation on pensions was by somebody who was formerly an actor, and just sort of transferred his skills into the world of pension, and was able to really engage an audience. So communication is absolutely key. Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of our questions. And just to say thank you so much, Jasmine. Obviously, you're extremely busy, and we're so grateful that you gave up time to talk to us today. And hopefully we can continue those conversations about financial education in school, because I think, as I said, there's a huge appetite for that at the moment. And also just to say to you, you're always welcome to come back to your old school. So please do come and visit. I know we've done this interview at a distance, but you're always welcome to come back to Brighton Girls, and we wish you all the best for the coming years and your continued success. So we'll be watching very, very closely. But thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in to listen.